Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the Schroeder and Napoli in mode Shuffle. Very curious to see how some of the best secondary cruisers can do in this mode. They're going to do pretty well actually. We get Convoy on the same map for both of these games, and I'm on the opposite side for the Napoli trying to defend this Convoy. Here we're attacking though with Schroeder, so it makes it a little bit of an interesting video to see what we can do on either side to try and help our team win. The secondaries on cruisers are a little bit odd since you don't have very many upgrades for them in your commander skills, and really what allows Schroeder and Napoli more specifically to be such insane secondary boats is that a lot of the accuracy upgrades battleships have to take in the commander skills are just baked into these ships. So you don't really have to do anything, you just have these secondaries on your ship that are going to do some really nice damage thanks to their improved accuracy. So you can't really run very many cruisers unless they have these skills baked into them, into their ship's design. Otherwise, secondary cruisers really aren't a thing in this video game. Something special about Schroeder as well is that you have such a powerful engine boost here. This ship can run around the map very, very quickly. So with this one, we're going to be full pushing the enemy's convoy in the north here. This is something that I actually did very early on with Schroeder here. This is one of the first or second days playing, where you gotta be very careful about allowing your convoy to start undefended. So the enemy team is gonna get a lot of map control in the middle of the map, towards the south of the map, where the endpoints are. But if the convoy never makes it to those areas, I mean, is it really going to help them win the game? That's kind of the thing here with Schroeder is you're so quick, you can get into these positions. Napoli's reasonably quick as well, and we're going to see how powerful that exhaust smoke can be. But for now, we're going to help deal with this Marceau. We got a Z42 helping us out here a little bit, but you can see how much further ahead we are than our teammates. We're just that quick. And I'm pretty interested in pushing very aggressively. Already spotting the first convoy line here. And the other side is actually much slower to get around this north flank. So very fast into this action here. You do have to be very careful about this on this map. You have to have control of the north. We're going to avoid the hawk here for a second, getting behind the island. As always, brawling principles, the basics are trying to isolate fights, trying to use island cover to isolate 1v1s or just prevent crossfires from being able to hit you. So basically leaving that hawk to do almost nothing to us here while we're able to attack his convoy. Maybe the Wisconsin, maybe the cruiser in the channel gap there, we'll see. Although there is a sub. Fortunately, Schroeder has a hydro, but unlucky for me, I've already used it, so we're about to run out. But our engine boost's almost back, which is very nice. Hawk does get a few torpedoes, I believe, so got to be a little bit careful there as well. And Schroeder has very good armor at close range. Much like the A-Gear and the Siegfried, at close range, we have very, very strong upper belt armor. It also has some Citadel turtleback, but really not all that effective against battleships. More cruiser AP, since it can get overmatched. But very risky to go broadside to the Hawk like this. I'm just hoping that I can get this turn out before he actually reloads. And just barely had the turning radius to get past this island here. And it's going to actually be very helpful that I grounded here. On accident, it's not like a play I intended to do, to be totally honest with you. But it allows us to dodge the subtorps. Maybe it was all calculated. Nah, actually, I won't even try to pretend that. That was just luck. We do manage to take out another Liberty ship. That's the whole first wave of convoy dealt with. And there's the second wave. We've already caught up to it. Running Lucians here, we do get ourselves some secondary reload boost as well. And Schroeder does not have the accuracy that Napoli does with its secondaries. But it's not too bad. I believe it's around the levels of the Kurfürst and Preußen line. Slightly improved over basic secondaries, but not to the level of Schlieffen, Ohio. Napoli has that accuracy, for example. That's why it's so powerful. One of the reasons the secondaries on these cruisers as well is quite strong is you don't have to wait for manual secondaries to actually spool up. That skill was changed quite a while ago now, but it used to give you instantaneous accuracy at its maximum level. Now, though, you have to wait, what, 30, 45 seconds, I think it is, for the full accuracy to take effect when it comes to manual secondaries on battleships. Since cruisers don't have that skill, and these secondary cruisers essentially have the built-in manual secondary accuracy at its maximum, we don't have to wait for that spool time for those secondaries to be on target, which means it's very dangerous for destroyers to open up on these ships, since that's kind of the reason I think the manual secondary skill was changed that way. It was to allow destroyers who get caught or spotted or happen to be shooting, something like that, to give them an opportunity to say, no, I'm not going to take all these secondaries, I'm going to go dark. I'll have to wait 20 seconds if I've shot, but at least the secondaries have like a 40 to 45 second spool up time. I'm not taking the full accuracy from those secondary battleships. But with cruisers, that really doesn't take much of an impact. 5 kills here. I did manage to finish off the submarine. Feels pretty good. And we're catching this A-gear broadside. And they only have 1 Liberty ship left. So very, very close game here, actually. If it didn't have these Liberty ships, if this was Airship Escort, which I do think is a little bit better of a game mode, they probably would have won this game. We don't have very much map control. Our guys are pretty spread out. They're very condensed, and so attacking them like this would have been very difficult to do solo or with a little bit of help. But we do finish off their convoy, and that gives us the win. In Airship Escort, they probably would have just pushed their airship, and we wouldn't have really done much about it. So, you know, an interesting twist on the game mode. I guess the variety is probably a good thing in my opinion, but I can see where Convoy isn't quite as fun for a lot of people thanks to that. But it does mean you have to push. You have to push very aggressively. I talked about that in the Ohio video recently as well, where you just have to full send to protect these Liberty ships. On some of the maps, it's harder. This map is a little bit easier, I would say, especially with the second line of Liberty ships, but you just need to protect them early on. So with Napoli here, we're defending the Liberty ships, and you can see exactly what I'm doing. I'm trying to prevent someone from doing what I just did in the previous clips. I'm playing my Napoli, trying to deal with this northern early push from a Preußen and a Napoli. Napoli, with its smoke, is kind of ridiculous, I gotta say. It allows the Napoli to play in such weird ways that almost any other ship would not be able to get away with. No radar on the enemy team, which is fortunate, so I can play so aggressively. This Preußen's even trying to blind fire our smoke, which he's doing pretty accurately. Considering he bracketed our ship, I would say that was just the German dispersion trolling him there. His aim point was probably pretty good, which is impressive when it comes to blind firing Napoli smokes since you're moving so quickly. Although that mod that I had active last patch, maybe he's got that one that gives you the exact center of a smoke puff when it spawns. It's a little bit of a cheater mod, but hey, it's legal according to Wargaming. I haven't installed mods quite yet, as you can see, but I'll probably get them back soon enough as they do offer massive advantages. Waiting to shoot, though, until we're outside of our smoke fire range, which on Napoli is around 8.8 kilometers. It allows me to shoot within my smoke without getting detected. Napoli can actually fire its secondaries, fire its main guns out of its smoke, and not be detected. Kind of insane. Kind of insane. The other thing to note in this early clip is using our spotter plane while we're in smoke. Sometimes that's a problem when you're using smoke in a destroyer, trying to farm, and then you smoke up, and then you realize, wait, I was the one spotting, now I can't do any damage. With Napoli, you get yourself a fighter plane. I call it a spotter, but that's how I use this fighter plane oftentimes. It's just to try and get some plane spotting on these guys. We're actually doing some decent citadel damage to this broadside Napoli, which I was a little surprised about. Typically, it's only battleship calibers that are going to do some consistent damage to Napoli broadsides. Well, I say consistent. I should do some air quotes around that. Napoli can definitely be a little trolly when it's flat broadside, typically not taking too much damage, where I think it probably should. Nowhere near like Wisconsin in close range. It does have an above water citadel, but the way the turtleback angles work, even though you overmatch it a lot of the time, I don't know. It's weird. Maybe it's overpenning. It's weird. Napoli tends to get away with more than it should. But in this case, we actually did punish that Napoli pretty well. And I'm playing passive here towards the back of the map now, since I do notice that they have a lot of people in that, what, F8 square, and pushing in like this, especially with the GK going to the 10 line, it's a little tricky to do that in open water, even with a Napoli. So I'm waiting for my smoke screen to come back up, and then we can be more aggressive again. That's pretty classic Napoli gameplay, by the way. You push very aggressively, maybe you overdo it a little bit, and then use your smoke to freely turn away and get into a kiting position, get a little bit more safe, and then you can play aggressive again once your smoke screen is back up. Managed to take out the Napoli, very nice, and pushing in with a Cyclone. These Cyclones can come in very, very quickly in this game mode, which I actually really, really like. I've mentioned this a few times whenever they've come up, but this mode being so aggressive, brawly focused, having Cyclones come in within the first 3 or so minutes of the match is very, very cool. It allows you to have those initial engagements, but also comes in quick enough that it can give you some cover when things go south or when you start to die in those early just full send pushes. Now this GK is playing very wide on the flank, preventing me from getting a very strong position to help our convoy get to the endpoint here. This is the more difficult endpoint, I think, the early convoy. It's very hard to protect them on this map. So I'm just going to go through and try and get back to the middle of the map where our team is getting a decent stronghold over the center of the map. Us defending that northern flank while the second line of Liberty ships got further towards the south is very important here. But our teammates are doing an excellent job in the south. Can't really see it right now because of the Cyclone, but we're going to help finish off a few of these last northern guys. We just need to get back, though, to help out. Dealing with the enemy Napoli, for example, there's also a Soyuz. So there's a lot of HP to go through. And if they just sit bow in behind that island, I mean, they can hold that endpoint very, very easily. GK, though, a bit of a scary target to have on our broadside at such close range. But we have a smoke, so we don't have to worry about it. It's so powerful, man. It is so, so powerful. But we do need to deal with him if we want to get a little further to the south. Anytime I want to push towards the south, I'm basically going to have to show broadside to this GK. He actually shoots, and the Summers pops up, so I know the GK is on the reload, so I'm fine with shooting here. We do get spotted in our smoke from shooting, since we're inside our smoke fire detection range, but that's okay. It's not like we're going to take much damage from it, since the GK had already used his shot. And our Jaeger actually finishes off the Summers. Very nice to see Jaeger using his guns. Typically that ship plays a bit more like a sub, just torping things. But thanks for using your guns, man. Do appreciate it. It does allow us to push to the south. GK, I think, is going around that northern island. So here I can get a nice flank on the Talon and hopefully help out on the Soyuz and Napoli as well. Because we do need to get this last convoy safely to this endpoint. And Soyuz has a lot of HP to go through, especially when it's so angled like this. And it's not like we have the strongest ships left here. We got a couple of tier 8s against the Soyuz, so we definitely need some Napoli firepower. So I'm glad I got back in time, just barely. Already lost one of our Liberty ships, and a second one is on half HP, so it's just coming down to the wire. Couple fires from the secondaries, not too big a deal, but my teammates do manage to help finish him off, and then the gearing gets spotted. Trying to finish off those convoy ships. Napoli secondaries, again, that's that instant accuracy. Don't have to worry about manual secondaries starting up. So we get some very nice sap into the destroyer here, and our teammates managed to finish him off. But the gearing finished off one more Liberty ship. Down to the wire, the last one remaining. So we're going to try and escort it into the cap zone with our last smoke. And where was that GK? It was around the island. Very fortunate. Very, very fortunate that the GK did not push towards the south right away when I started pushing to the south. I don't think we would have won otherwise. But we do manage to get the victory. It is quite difficult with Convoy, more so than Airship Escort. But it is an interesting alternate style to protect these ships as you're trying to push with them. It is quite difficult, though, I will admit. And there's a little bit of cheese in this mode if you're taking something like a Schroeder and just full sending it at that initial convoy location, and you don't get stopped. You can easily win games like that, but I'd prefer if they lasted a little longer. So maybe some different convoy spawns, or we just need more people to realize they have to defend that initial position as well as taking control of the final locations too. As for the builds here, there's a lot of different things you can do since, again, these secondaries do just have baked-in accuracy. So typically we're actually going with tank builds for the most part, outside of the upgrades here. Yeah, I was going full secondary. Maybe not the best in randoms, but in ranked, and it's certainly in mode shuffle, you can make these builds work. So really the buffs here are on the upgrades. Your commander really only has two options for secondary upgrades. Here, Pack-a-Punch recently, well, it's been a little while now, but giving you 20% secondary battery firing range, which is a little comical since for the most part, it's just Napoli that really wants to take this. So it felt like when they changed this skill, it was just a buff to Napoli when it came out. Michelangelo wants it, Schroeder wants it. There's a few, but not very many. It's a very niche thing that they changed, and it just felt like a Napoli buff, which that ship certainly did not need. So we also can take top grade gunner though, giving us another 10% reload. And sure, our main guns get a little bit of help as well with that. Otherwise, mostly just to get more healing, actually more hydro and speed boost. Very nice on Schroeder, a little more HP, and then just trying to maximize that speed boost since it is so powerful here. We don't really need the full concealment build here since we have 11.3 kilometer detect without concealment expert, and we still have 12 kilometer secondary range. That's the key here when it comes to Pack-a-Punch. It frees up basically a full extra point if you just swap a 4-pointer for a 3-pointer since you don't need to take concealment anymore. That was the gimmick, I suppose, before Pack-a-Punch was changed, is that you took a full conceal build and then your secondaries were just barely lower range than your concealment range was, which is very good already. But now we're in a situation where the secondaries reach out further than your concealment, and there is no stealth firing with your secondary. So they changed that as well. So your actual concealment blooms out to your secondary range when your secondary guns fire, which is a good change. Something I was worried about when they announced this Pack-a-Punch skill. But it does mean you might get detected at times when you didn't mean it, especially with Schroeder. And the full concealment build on Napoli will also have that. But as you see here, 11 kilometer range and 11.5 conceal. I have opted not to take concealment expert because again, I'm just full sending it in this mode shuffle. In random battles, you might want to take more concealment to be a little more stealthy, get into better positions quicker without being detected and focused down. But in this mode, yeah, it's just full send, which I very much like. This exhaust smoke is really what helps Napoli play so well. And then for the Schroeder, we did have that speed boost, which 15% is pretty good, man. Typical speed boosts are 8%. I know we've seen some recently with 20 or even 30%, but 15 is no joke. That's a very powerful one. But Napoli, better secondaries, more accurate, and the sap hits just so hard here. And then that smoke, and I think it has a little better armor as well. It's harder to take down. Means Napoli is a better choice, but Schroeder does it very well too. That Schroeder being a dockyard ship means, I know a lot of you probably don't have it, but hey, Napoli's a little better in this. So, I mean, that one's pretty rare and pretty expensive anyway too. So the secondary cruiser build, not the easiest one to run in this, especially if you're free to play player. There's some secondary battleships though to go for. Schlieffen, totally free, not too bad to grind up. And hey, you can even grind the tier 8, 9, and 10 through the tier 8, through the tier 8 and tier 9 to get to the tier 10 in this mode, which is pretty cool. But that's going to do it for today's video, looking at some secondary brawling action with cruisers this time. Not too bad. There's a few others that I want to try that are a little less secondary focused. Maybe just full send in a Hindenburg with a DPM torp build and try and make that work. I don't know if that'll happen. But I got some ideas. For now, though, that is going to do it. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.